You are listening to Arcane Carolinas, an exploration of the Carolinas' folklore, legends, myths, and modern weird. Each episode, we examine the historical context of our topic and aim to preserve some of the stories that help make this part of the world such a fascinating place. So this is a special mini episode of Arcane Carolinas. We have just come off our launch.
We just had Dragon Con goes virtual, and we just released the first 4 full episodes, plus the Dragon Con goes virtual episode, which is coming out at the same time as all this. I had a great time and have really enjoyed the positive feedback and hearing from people who loved what we're doing.
I want to give a huge shout out to our Patreon supporters and thank them. We've put up some exclusive art, some title cards for the episodes that we've released so far, as well as some sneak preview title cards so you can get a clue of what's coming in the future. Our Patreon supporters have voted on the next episode that I will be researching personally, and I'm really excited about it because I was on the fence. We have this huge bucket of ideas, and there was 3 or 4 that I was sort of wrestling with. So I just said, you know what? That's why we have Patreon. Put it up there and immediately got a couple clicks, and thank you for that. It made the decision a lot easier for me. We're also working on some video content for you. There will be Patreon exclusive episodes starting in October. For September, we actually posted our Dragon Con talk video up there for free so that people could get the idea of what you'll receive as a Patreon backer.
And speaking of Dragon Con goes virtual, we also want to thank the American Sci-Fi Classics track at Dragon Con for hosting us there. We really appreciate it. If you are at all interested in Dragon Con, or if you're interested in more of that sort of content, they do weekly quarantine panels. They plan to continue doing that in the future. They happen on Thursday nights. You can watch them live or you can watch them recorded later. And they cover all sorts of fun, weird, fandom-y topics like the Twilight Zone and things like that.
Definitely good people, and we really appreciate their support. One thing that I did forget to mention that's coming in October for Patreon backers that I'm really excited about. It's not cryptid or ghost stories or anything like that. We're going to make our own Halloween playlists. So Michael will do his, I'll do mine. We'll talk about them. It'll be kind of fun.
It's going to be really neat. We'll each pick a few favorite songs to really sort of sum up the spooky season for each of us and talk about why they're important, and we'll have a good time.
Things that are coming in the future for everyone. We have a really great episode recorded. We do everything a couple of weeks in advance, months in advance for some of this stuff. Storyteller, paranormal investigator, and author out of South Carolina, Tally Johnson, has shared some really great ghost stories with us. And the thing about ghost stories is they come best from a storyteller. It's not something that you can, as a researcher, always find the best details about. You want somebody that was there or knows information that you can't find on the internet. So with that in mind, we've begun reaching out to paranormal investigative groups, and we're going to do an ongoing series called Arcane Carolinas Case Files, where we have investigative groups on to talk about some of their experiences.
Yeah, and it's an opportunity for us to get to highlight the sort of work that paranormal research groups really do outside of sort of the TV version of what paranormal research is, and to hear some firsthand stories and some legends that they've investigated, and also to potentially connect listeners with groups that are in their area. If you're in the Carolinas and you're listening to this, you might find a group that's nearby that can look into something that you're interested in having investigated.
Or even just community building. People connect with like-minded people. So our commitment at this time is in November, we will launch the first Arcane Carolinas Case Files episode, which will highlight a few different investigators. In the interim, because we don't want to be the ghost podcast, right?
Right.
we want to cover more than that. We will have some ghost stories from Tally Johnson coming in October that we're looking forward to.
And we have all sorts of other topics that are not ghost stories that we'll be covering all winter long. Like you said, we have a list of ideas longer than our arms.
Right. I'm really excited to keep going on the cryptids. I really enjoy the critter stories, creature features.
Yeah, and I like weird phenomena, things like UFO sightings and unexplained lights and all kinds of stuff like that.
So that's what we have to look forward to. We will leave you with, I'm going to share, I'm doing quotes right now, ghost story, which is really more of a prank story because I don't want to step on anybody else's tail with a story of a prank. So we're going to put it here, and that'll be a little extra content. Many decades ago, my grandparents and my dad lived in an old farmhouse in Virginia. This was built in the Civil War era, and prisoners of war were hung on the front porch.
Oh.
Yeah. in my dad's room, there was actually a prayer, like somebody's final prayer written on the wall that had been painted around over the decades. No one would paint over it for suspicion of what might happen or just preserving this person's last words.
That's pretty intense.
Oh, it gets worse. In the basement, there were actual iron shackles still mounted into the stone wall where the prisoners would be kept.
And they just lived there.
Yep. So for anyone that has ever lived in an old farmhouse, you know about this. People that have not, the wood slats that make up the floors in these houses are not always as tight as in a modern house. And sometimes, like in bad cases, light can get through. In other cases, it's just like, air gets through, whatever. There's like a little gap between some of the floorboards.
Yeah, they're not totally joined.
Right. My grandfather had invited some friends to stay with them for a long weekend. And of course, they got the tour when they arrived. Here's all the creepy stuff in this house.
Right.
This was probably in the 70s. And these people were very pragmatic. I don't know, not necessarily believers in paranormal or ghosts.
They were down to earth.
Down to earth. What they didn't know was that my grandfather and my father had prepared a prank. So it was all set up, like telling them about all this and showing them all this was a setup just to mess with them. So the way the comforter laid off the edge of the bed, it touched the floor. And my grandfather and my dad had sewn fishing line into the end of the comforter and then run that fishing line through the gaps in the floorboard so that they could pull the comforter down while the person was in the room.
That is horrible and funny.
They did what people do. They hang out, talk, catch up, spend some time together. Everybody goes to bed. And my dad's down there and he's got the fishing line and he starts pulling it. And you hear comforter gets pulled back up. So he does it again. Comforter gets pulled back up. And the guy yells out at my grandfather, like, knock it off. So my grandfather comes out of his room, goes in. He's like, what are you talking about? And the guy's like, shut up. I know it's you. And he's like, go to bed. Go to bed. You're tired. You're crazy. Go to bed. Goes back. Does it again. The guy gets upset. Yells for my grandfather. Grandfather comes in. He's like, it's not me. Yells out for my dad. Well, where's he at? So by this point, my dad had sort of like snuck around like during the commotion. Yeah. Comes up. He's like, what are you talking about? The guy's like, this is crap. Okay, did it again. And apparently you could hear in the guy's voice that it was cracking a little bit. And he was not okay with what was happening.
Yeah, this is not a good thing to do to people.
So then they had a good laugh and let him in on the joke. And he was really pissed and chased my dad out of the house.
That's really funny.
So you can see how that doesn't fit in somebody's investigative story.
Totally. But
worth sharing.
It reveals that people who are the most down-to-earth, skeptical people, they still have that little voice in the back of their head that tells them maybe.
Right. It's great. I love that story. That is a story that I've heard from my grandmother. I've heard it from my dad. I've heard it from my aunt. It's great.
That's really funny.
So yeah, that's about it for this. This was just a quick thank you to everyone. Please subscribe. Give us a rating on Apple Podcast or even a review. If you're enjoying the show, please do that. That helps us. Yes. We're trying to reach out and bring guests on. And if we can demonstrate to them that people are enjoying it, that helps us out.
Yeah, it really does. It means a lot when we get that sort of positive feedback because that's the sort of encouragement that keeps us going.
That's it. Thank you very much. And we will catch you in October.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Arcane Carolinas. Thanks for joining us. If you liked it, give us a rating, leave a comment. If you didn't like it, send us an email and tell us why. If you're not wrong, we'll try to fix it.
And if you're interested in award-winning speculative fiction, including science fiction, urban fantasy, and horror, find me, Michael G. Williams, at www.michaelgwilliamsbooks.com and check out Falstaff Books at falstaffbooks.com.
If you'd like to pick up some Arcane Carolinas merch, look at behind-the-scenes info, pictures, videos, stuff like that, all the things that get cut, check out arcanecarolinas.com, where you can get access to our Patreon, our Facebook, our Twitter, our Instagram, all that in one place, including the merch store. Buy a shirt.
Clothe your body.
Drape your body in our wares.
Be our living billboards.